Scott Jennings is a CNN political commentator, and he joins me from Louisville, Kentucky. Thanks so much for being here. You know, all that ink spilled about how the Republican Party was looking to move past Donald Trump seems, quaint, almost comical now. It's easy to make fun of the Trump statue and all that, but are you surprised at how united they are behind him, how much friendly fire there was aimed at the Republicans who had been critical of him?
No, I'm not surprised. I mean, Donald Trump is the most popular figure in the Republican Party. He has signaled that he wants to hang around for the next 4 years or more. He may even run for president again. And there's really no counterbalance to him of equal stature in the party, at least as it relates to the Republican grassroots. So I'm not really surprised about all of this. And we'll see how it plays out in the 22 and 24 primaries. But I suspect Donald Trump's going to be around as long as he wants to be in the Republican Party.
Well, then that's exactly it. Normally, this conference is sort of a platform for future presidential candidates. But as you say, it seems hard to escape Trump's gravitational pull. But given that, did anyone kind of stand out to you?
Well, I think Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida is a rising star. Governor Noem of South Dakota, also someone who I think made a big impact. I mean, there are always people at these conferences that make very good speeches. In this particular iteration, though, Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee if he chooses to be. I mean, that's just a fact. And the rest of these folks are kind of playing to see if he decides not to run. And that's just the way it is for them. And they don't have any choice but to play along. But their fate is not in their own hands. It's in Donald Trump's hands.
So, if some of the more moderate Republicans had been there, assuming they wouldn't have been, booed off the stage, what are a few of the actual issues beyond, the big lie, cancel culture, things like that, real issues that you would have liked them to bring up?
Well, we're not really running on much of a platform right now as Republicans. Trump didn't have a platform. The Republican National Committee at the convention didn't write a platform in 2020. Trump's issues were really non-existent. And right now, the Republicans are mostly just positioning themselves against things, against the media, which I actually think they treat more like the opposition party than the Democrats. They're against cancel culture. They're even against some Republicans. Ted Cruz gave a speech at this conference basically trying to lop off, everybody who wears a tie and works in a cubicle from the Republican Party. And so we're sort of anti or against things, but I'm not sure what we're for. And I think that will carry you some distance in politics. But in order to be competitive in a presidential campaign, I think you actually have to be for something. You have to tell people how you're going to move the country forward. We didn't have it in 20. We don't have it right now. But for the party to be nationally competitive, I think it needs it by 24.
You touched on cancel culture there. I mean, it's something I hear all the time from my Republican friends, but I'm wondering with the economy, with COVID, with so many actual problems, why is that such an issue that resonates with so many Republicans?
Well, I think it's because, number one, Republicans hate the media more than anything. And I'm just telling you, they think the media at large is a bigger problem than liberal Democrats. And they think the media goes around trying to cancel Republicans. They think big tech companies goes around trying to cancel Republicans. And so they see this huge left-leaning ecosystem out there that is trying to silence Republican and conservative voices. And so it is a huge deal on the right. And it's a legitimate concern. I think the question is, though, is that enough to make you a nationally viable party in a presidential election? It might make you regionally viable or in a certain jurisdiction, but Republicans just lost the presidential election by 7 million votes. And so it's been a long time, really, since we won the national popular vote. And I think the core question is something like cancel culture going to be enough? I think it could be a component of a winning campaign, but I'm not sure it's enough to make up your entire strategy or your whole platform.
Yeah, and on that, many people on the left, point to the polls that suggest that Trumpism is kind of driving Republicans away from the Republican Party. But I've been wanting to ask you this for a while. I mean, is that just that Republicans are being driven away from the party itself, but they're not being driven away from voting Republican? They're still supporting President Trump. It's not like they're going to go vote for Democrats now.
Well, I mean, in the 2020 election, a lot of Republicans who usually vote Republican certainly did not vote for Donald Trump, and many of them voted for Joe Biden. Now, some of them voted Republican down ticket, which tells me in their hearts they still want to vote for conservatives out there, but there was something about Donald Trump that repelled them. That's the thing about the Republican brand. It has to be elastic enough to capture the moderate, as you called it, or the suburban voter or the white collar voter, while at the same time capturing this new blue collar cohort that Trump has undoubtedly brought to the party. There has to be some elasticity. The brand has to be big enough to capture both. That's why I think when I hear Ted Cruz and others say we want to get rid of certain kinds of Republicans out of the party, I don't understand why you would want to do that when that makes your party smaller and less viable. I think if I were Donald Trump or anyone else who wanted to be the boss of the party, I would be thinking, how do I get the most people in the tent, not how do I exclude people, because the politics of subtraction, I think, will only lead to losses in the future.
Yeah, all right. Well, the main event, Donald Trump speaking tonight. We'll see what he has to say. Thank you so much, Scott Jennings. We really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks a lot.
Address, but what are you expecting today?
Well, I mean, I guess it would be better to sound like 2016 than 2020. I mean, he wasn't much of a campaigner in 2020 at all. He tried hard on his own campaign for about 2 weeks. He had no agenda. The RNC had no platform. I mean, he didn't run on much of anything at all. Now, in 2016, running on immigration, that was a motivating item, and that worked for him. And so getting back to that kind of a 2016 fighting spirit might be better tactically for him. Now, for the Republican Party at large, is this smart to put Donald Trump at the center of our national electoral strategy, someone who's never gotten more votes than another Democrat ever? I would submit that it's not smart, but the reality is going back to immigration, fighting the media, attacking the political establishment in both parties, that will work for him inside of a Republican primary heading into 2024, even if the Republican Party is still a little bit in the wilderness as it relates to a national governing strategy to win the national popular vote.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Scott, what is the actual strategy for people who want to maybe be the party's nominee in 2024? Which is it?
I think they're road testing these messages right now. I don't think they know quite what's going to work by 2024, so they're looking for things today to see how people respond to it. This is not unlike what Trump did at times. You know, he would throw out messages at his rallies to see how people would respond. I think people are picking up on that strategy. I mean, the world will change 100 times between now and 2024. I think the question for the Republicans is, though, do you think you can put an anti-strategy at the center of a national presidential election? You could certainly put one at the center of a midterm where jurisdictions and geography are more important. But in 2024, is being anti-media, anti-Democrat, anti-certain people in your own party, is that enough? Or do you have to give them something further? And what we never found in the Trump years and what we're still looking for now is, what is our proactive policy platform? Doesn't have to be greatly detailed, I wouldn't offer, but certainly you have to show people what you stand for and what you would do. And we don't have it yet. And it's not clear to me really who in the party right now is sort of the ideas person, you know, who or people, who, you know, who is generating what we would have traditionally called a platform on which we would run an election.
Well, that's a good your take on this. The New York Times had a bombshell story yesterday about a second allegation against New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, a second allegation of sexual harassment, this time by a former aide. And this is in addition to some questions that had been raised about his handling of the COVID pandemic in the state, specifically the nursing home deaths. His approval rating has plummeted since last summer from 66% to 49%. How damaging is all of this for Cuomo?
Well, I mean, these allegations seem very credible to me. I mean, these are firsthand accounts. I mean, there's more evidence on these allegations against Cuomo than there ever was against, say, Brett Kavanaugh. And we know what Cuomo and other Democrats' position on Kavanaugh was. And if they held themselves to the same standard, his career would be toast. Republicans have been complaining and screaming about Cuomo for a year. People are now catching up with it because his lies and his corruption and the treatment of these women is finally seeing the light of day. So I hope this all gets thoroughly vetted. These people that have come forward seem extremely credible to me. And as I said, if Democrats want to hold their own people to the same standards they lay out for Republicans, then they would ditch Cuomo because he's clearly made a bunch of personal and professional mistakes.